Hello everyone! Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Let's Have Renaissance, a podcast about writing, editing, publishing, the arts, and more. I am Ito Utini.
And I'm Makaya Utini, and today we're here with two amazing guests, Jennifer Griffith and William Gadea. Jennifer is a musician and composer whose vocal and instrumental works are inspired by politics, social issues, and human relationships. William is an author, animator, entrepreneur, and founder of IdeaRocket, an international commercial animation studio. They're married and live in Buenos Aires, Argentina. We're excited to have them on today. Before we begin, I've got a quick announcement for our listeners. We're curating resources for artists and writers on our blog. It's completely free. Check it out at thedatekeepers.com and feel free to reach out anytime and let us know what other resources you want us to build. Also, we'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe, like, comment, and share this podcast with your friends and on your socials so we can reach more people and do more for the creative community. Thank you.
This is a special episode with special people. Thank you, Jennifer and Will, for joining us. This is the first, but not the last time for us to have a couple on the podcast. Ladies first, Jennifer, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Well, I've been a musician since I was a little kid. My mother played piano in a New Orleans type jazz style bands and stuff. So I grew up in music, and then I've been wandering around the world, just the life of a troubadour. I lived for a while in Greece, and then also in Paris, and then came to New York, and 20 years later I met Will in New York. And then we got hitched, and then we moved to Buenos Aires, where we are now.
Will, can you please tell us about you?
Sure. I was born in Peru and lived there till I was 7. Then my family moved to Australia. Lived there until I was 14. Then we went to the Dominican Republic, and I finished high school there and then went to study film at NYU. Right after film school, I started gravitating towards the theater and was writing plays. And of course, it's not the most remunerative work in the world. So I also had a day job and different day jobs working in network news, working support at the investment banks in Wall Street. And, that was fine for a while. I never fell out of love with the theater, but I did fall out of love with having a day job. So I wanted to find something creative to do. So I took these graphic skills that I already had for my job, and then I sort of linked it up with my film school education and learned some animation software and started a career in children's television. And that was a lot of fun. But then YouTube came along, and it was exciting to see, this becoming a major way of communicating with people. And I saw that businesses needed to use video to communicate. So I started an animation studio in 2012 called IdeaRocket. And I'm still going strong today, but my focus has changed a little bit creatively. I've become interested partly through my Zen Buddhist practice, but also just, from marinating in this life in consciousness and in stories in particular. I've written a book called Arrow, The Power and Poison of Story, and it kind of links up science with the Buddhist practice, the stories in our head. It's primarily about story and how we use it to coordinate with each other, to entertain each other, to bond with each other. It's kind of like our species' superpower, but then at some point, it kind of became who we are. We are these stories, and sometimes those stories can make us very sad and frustrated and anxious. And I guess what I was trying to figure out for myself, and that's the main reason why I write, I think, to figure things out for myself. It just seemed that the best way to do it was to live with these stories is not to get rid of them, but to contextualize them, to remind yourself that they're just stories, to not let them take you over, so to speak.
Speaking of stories, would you like to share the story of how you two met?
I guess I could answer that, unless you want to, Will.
Go ahead, take it.
Actually, we met on a site called Plenty of Fish, and then we had a phone call, and Will told me he was making quince. He had quince roasting in the oven, and I was like, that is so cool. I love quince. So based on that, basically, and a conversation about politics that went pretty well, we decided to have a date, and then we just had a drink somewhere in New York, and then we argued over attachment and detachment. And Will said, he's a Buddhist, and he was trying to become. I'm putting words in your mouth, Will, but let me do this. Let me just do this for fun. And he said, I want to be detached. The Buddhist thing is to try to detach. And I said, well, I'm all about attachment. So I didn't think that was going to work out at all. But surprisingly, when we were walking back to the subway, he said, do you want to do this again? And I said, yeah, okay. And then the next time we had a really great time, and I knew there was something there. But it's funny how it wasn't the first time that we connected. I mean, it was because of the quince, but the first time we actually saw each other and hung out for a while.
I think another thing that happened in that first conversation is that we both discovered we were xenophiles, that you had been to Greece and you were curious about the world, and I had this upbringing, and I was definitely curious about the world. So in a lot of ways, that was a key factor, and it came out in the very first conversation.
What is it like being married to a fellow creative person? I mean, I can say from experience it's wonderful, but there's always the risk that your creative, chaotic energies will spiral out of control and you won't have anybody to ground you. And so for a partnership like that to work, you really need different forces to balance you, and that looks different for every couple. So can you talk a little bit about how you complement each other, how you balance each other, and just how you survive with each other, both being creative people?
Well, let me just say one thing. We have been really fortunate that our kind of creative bursts have aligned in a way, except that Will took every Sunday for 3 years to write his book, so I didn't see him. And actually that's worked out quite well, though, because I ended up just using that time for my own work, and now we work too much probably, but we are our best friends creatively. I mean, he is just incredible support for me in terms of, he said just the other day, I want you to, keep playing for as long as possible. So let's look at all of the health or whatever risks that you have. And I don't know, I just felt really pumped after that conversation.
I think also we have different modalities of creativity. Maybe it wouldn't work out if I was still a playwright, and Jennifer is, of course, like a performer and composer. But I really enjoy her exploration, and I think I'm in a stage where I'm a commercial artist, and I love working with clients. I love creating things for them. I love trying to figure out how to meet a business need. I think it's creative too, but it's a different modality than what Jennifer is in the sense that she's connected with the dreams, the things that happen to her, when she's walking down the street. She's got the antenna up. And I think I have my antenna up too, but I think my antenna now is sort of more in the area of ideas rather than the area of creating stories or music or artifacts that are artistic. if that makes any sense.
And how is it living in different countries? Where do you guys feel like is home more?
That's a hard question. I mean, it's kind of like home is wherever you are. I don't know. I grew up in really, like, the only house we ever lived in when I was a kid. I just wanted to get out of there because nobody ever moved. I remember begging my father, please, let's just move. I just want to move. Everybody I know moves. I thought that was so cool to move. And then as soon as I left, I just moved every, like, 5 years, at most, rather. I stayed at one place for 5 years, and that's the longest I've ever stayed anywhere. So
I think I was kind of the opposite. I had moved around so much that I kind of wanted to plant my roots down somewhere. And I remember, when I became a nationalized citizen of the U.S., at first I saw it as a little bit cynically, saying, "Oh yeah, this is the move that makes sense. This is going to make my life simpler, A, B, and C ways." There was something when I went through the naturalization ceremony that actually hit home and going, wait a minute, I belong somewhere now. And that was such a great feeling. And I guess I'm missing it. I love Argentina, but I'm not sure Argentina is home exactly.
So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you each talk a little bit more about your creative processes, what it looks like for you to take a project from the conception stage to realizing it and putting it out into the world?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that today because I have started a song. Well, I started by writing the lyrics, and now I'm trying to set it to music, and it can go either way. You could start with the music and set lyrics, but as I was writing, there's this kind of sketchy part where you're just kind of, I think of it as a placeholder. A lot of stuff that I'm writing is a placeholder for now. There's a lot of sort of, this is not that great. So that early stage is a lot of just shooting from the hip and then going, well, that'll do for now. And then, I guess it's then, along with that little kid, I think of it as the little kid just throwing paint at a canvas, there's this adult editor who comes in afterwards and says, and of course the editor has to stay away, I'm sure you've heard this kind of metaphor before, has to stay away until the little kid has something down. Let me put something down on paper first before you destroy it all. And then so that process comes in and starts saying, whoops, that's wrong. But usually in a way that's pretty positive, because I've got, instead of going, that's wrong and there's nothing, I know what the answer is now. It's like solving a crossword puzzle. And you go, there's 5 letters missing. Oh, I know what that word is. So those notes or that music comes to me in a little wash, a little burst of, oh, that's so much better, or whatever. So from that, that's the early stages, and then from that you get to the polishing stage, and you fall in love with the work. Oh, I love this thing. I just love it. And then you go through this really bad post-honeymoon phase where you think it's all just kind of dumb. And then you kind of come here somewhere in between to present it. For me, to perform it, I have to somewhat fall in love with it. I have to make peace with it. And then, and that just really happens naturally while I'm practicing. And so many things get polished up that you've just polished another little thing just before the performance. So it's this ongoing polishing stage that, you finally you're done with the piece and you're going, okay, that's enough. Until the next time you perform it and you start polishing again, because things have changed and you're a different person now, so.
How about you, Will?
Well, let me just say that there's something that Jennifer said that I related to the little kid and the editor, and it reminds me of a story about a famous animation director, Chuck Jones, who directed many of the great Warner Brother cartoons, many of the ones with Bugs Bunny, etc. And he would have a rule for meetings. He said, only say yes, you can't say no. And I think when you're collaborating creatively, to only have yes is something that, this sounds a little bit like that improv principle, right? Yes and.
Right.
But I think keeping that positivity and keeping the horizons open is super great when you're working alone and when you're collaborating with other people. Another thing that I find, and everybody works in a different way, but whether I was writing plays or whether I'm doing client work now, or whether I'm writing a book, I just get it on the page as soon as possible. I'm sure there are some people that can go there and do their research and, gather up the index cards and put them together and figure out their outline. But I just think it's best for me to just put it on the page and then revise. But there's that wonderful E.M. Forster saying, how do I know what I think until I see what I say? And I relate to that. I just want to use that creative process to figure things out.
Can we ask you the same thing? Because I'm curious, because you guys work together, what that process is like, or if you've talked about it before and you...
Well, we don't really have a standard process because each project requires a different approach.
A lot of writers get a draft out and then do the developmental editing later, either with a writing mentor or with a hired editor or with their publishing house or whatever. And we do most of that just in discussion with each other before we put anything down or anything more than just rough notes. There's always at least one other collaborator with us. There's me, there's Ito, and then there's the character in the story, which means that, and that's, I think, that's like the free radical factor that makes each of our stories different. Ito was recently asked about this, and I really liked how you put it because you were asked, whose voice do we write in? And she said, well, the character's voice. It's not her voice or my voice. Every character has their own voice that they impose on us. And
language, too.
Yeah, and so we're kind of like just channeling whatever that consciousness, and most of our characters are really creepy, so that's kind of like, it's like holding sort of a seance.
I was going to say, that I just finished the one called The Three Paths, I think, or the Three...
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
and it was so... I just love that it's just zig and zag. I love how much it defies expectations, and
it makes sense that you have to talk about it first, because the way you're talking about it's like defining the seed, and then once you plant the seed on the ground, yes, you can kind of both water it, but you kind of have to define the seed first before you can kind of see it flourish.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked the story, and we really appreciate you reading, but we want to keep this interview focused on you guys, so let's turn back to you. And by the way, for anyone who's interested, the story is Three Paths. It's published in Eunoia Review. We will link to that in the show notes in case you want to check it out. Anyhow, so I've got a question that is really more for Will. You said earlier that you really like commercial art, and you don't hear that very often from artists, writers. So how have you managed to come to love making art in a commercial context?
You said your stuff was a little dark. My plays were definitely dark. They're usually farces and very dark farces. And I felt like I had to really plumb the depths of my soul to pull them out. And to tell you the truth, I kind of got a little shot of relief at not having to plumb the depths of my soul and pull out this really dark stuff all the time. So, that was actually a positive turn in my life. And I still love seeing stuff that is a little dark sometimes. I have appetite for that.
And how do you guys have an artist community in Argentina, or is it just the two of you?
I can just say that, I work with musicians here, so I've had, my Spanish vocabulary is like, I like to say there's plumbing and music vocabulary. Because we do a lot of plumbing here. Because plumbing's not so good here. Same thing with music, I know a lot of terminology. But anyway, I like working with people here And I also wish I had more ability with the language. But there's also a large expat community here, an immigrant community. So there's a lot of camaraderie between artists in that community as well, including musicians and other kinds of artists, photographers, painters, writers. And so we all support each other. And it's almost like we're stuck together too, because we're all looking for people who speak English. And so, but it actually it makes for a really good, forces you to become a community.
I think people that are expats tend to be very open to experience, and artists are very open to experience too. So there's an overlap there, and I think a lot of the expat community is very creative, and to try to support each other and help each other and collaborate with each other. Jennifer works with some expats, and it's great to mix them up too, the locals and the expats, and have a meeting of cultures there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's usually, I think, where the most interesting creative products emerge from is when cultures and languages and people groups collide in unpredictable ways. So was it was easy then to integrate with that community? Was it easy to find where the artists were when you first moved to Buenos Aires?
Yeah, because I had one contact, and he was a jazz singer who belonged to this group that's called the Buenos Aires International Newcomers. And there were like 100 people in that group, and a lot of them were artists. So it was kind of built in that I got to be introduced to all these Argentine musicians, as well as meet all these other people who are from different countries.
Oh, that makes it easy.
Yeah, it was really easy.
That's great.
Really easy.
Do you have anything else you would like to share with our audience?
I think you guys have covered a lot. It's really been nice to talk with you. Very pleasant.
Yeah, likewise.
Yes,
Yeah.
fun.
Art couple talk. Good.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for, yeah, exactly.
Thanks so much for making the time.
Take
All
care.
right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.